When you think about labor, we talk about labor shortages, we talk about workforce challenges. What are some of the topics that you're hearing in construction progress and across the industry right now?
I mean, I think the biggest conversation is the balance between, are we recruiting or are we retaining? Because I think what we're seeing, and again, it could be a lot of our own bias of who we're looking at and who we're working with, but we're seeing a lot of really talented folks leaving the industry to work in other industries because they just frankly don't feel satisfied in this industry. And it's a very frustrating state for folks to be at. And maybe that's more of just a technologist thing where they kind of don't feel like they find a space. But I think there's a struggle there where you've got a lot of holes that you can't recruit or retain because there's almost a toxic nature to it. And then the craft side that has always been and will continue to be a challenge that is, again, this awakening that all these years of saying you have to go to college, you shouldn't go straight into the trades, that, Tanis and I grew up with, and we're told, at least I was told that, I don't know. But
so was I.
Okay, I was just making sure. I mean, I don't want to lump us together, but and anyway, I think those are the stigmas that we have to kind of unlearn when we talk about, again, that change that we really need to do. It's how we see the world and how that changes our behaviors moving forward.
Yeah, I'm interested, Tanis, because he hit on a couple of different things on the trades and the crafts, which I think is really going to be consistently one of our biggest problems. So how can these future leaders and how can anybody listening kind of think about bridging that gap? You can't solve it, but you can improve it. So what are some of the ways we can improve it?
Absolutely. So we talk about this a lot on the show. What was the last number? 550,000 open positions in the industry that need to be filled right now. That's a lot. And to Jeff's point, that's not something we're just going to fix overnight.
And that's before some of the new bills came out with
Absolutely.
more stuff. So we were over 500,000 plus behind before then.
This is a challenge that affects everyone. And when you look at the project-based nature of our work, and sometimes the very remote nature of our work, being in the industrial space, it's even more difficult because if you're recruiting a welder, that welder may very well have a family. He or she wants to be close to town, doesn't want to necessarily travel an hour to site and back each day, working a 12-hour shift. The structure of how we execute projects in some cases is keeping people away from pursuing a career in construction, industrial construction specifically. I started my career on site. 4 a.m. mornings were common. You were on site at 5:30. You started work at 6. You got off at 5:30. You went back to camp and, ate and showered and got up the next morning and did the same thing. That's not for everybody. And there are definitely people out in the industry that are considering careers in construction that don't want to do that. But that structure is not set in stone. We don't have to follow that type of structure. So if you think about students, if you think about parents, if we provided within the construction industry more flexible work options, whether that's in the trades or in technical roles, we could recruit more people. There's people that could work in the morning and go to school in the afternoon, or they have childcare commitments, so they can't start on site at 6 a.m., but they'd love to work a 10 to 3 o'clock shift. There are lots of people out there in the industry that we can recruit, but we are preventing that in a lot of cases purely by the work hours that we're setting on our project sites. That's got to change.
Yeah, and again, we're going to go back to some of the things I heard earlier in the day is anticipation of needs, looking at means and methods, and ultimately business development. Part of this process and sitting in it is you have to be not only the place that your owners want to come and do the work and partner with you, but also that the trades want to do that you have to think about that. And we have to change the way we build. Even in this type of construction, we have to start looking at building off-site more. Why? Because of those same reasons. Those same people can get up and happily, I just talked to a group that's doing off-site fabrication at a massive scale. And one of the greatest things they've been able to do is recruit working mothers because they have childcare on site, and these folks and these women can show up early, and actually men can show up early that are in charge of their children and drop them off, work a full shift, be productive, and leave. And it also reduces the number of people that need to be on site and need to be installing. But the key to that is if we don't do it at the earliest phase and we don't predict those needs while we're designing and engineering, we're never going to get there. Right? We keep doing the same thing over and over and wondering why it doesn't work. Definition of insanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And practice, by the way.
But I think you're hitting on the point that it's just because there's a big gap in engineering design and field craft and labor staff doesn't necessarily mean we need to recruit more, or doesn't necessarily mean we need to recruit more there. It could just mean we need more automation or more AI. This fear that AI is going to take our jobs, like, well, but if we need more jobs, then is that a bad thing? I think we have to ask that question, right?
If we think about that 13% of a day that people are spending looking for information, if we can decrease that, ultimately we can decrease the number of people we need on projects. If we can make people more efficient, absolutely. And ultimately, just flipping back to work structure, if you look at the turnover rate in the industry, it's, I think 21% was the last stat I saw. That's high compared to other industries. It's 64% for those under 24. So when you think about the project-based nature of our work, also start thinking about how you can maintain a steady workforce in a portfolio-based structure. Because if you can recruit skilled trades, recruit engineers, technicians, and keep them employed project to project to project instead of going through those ebbs and flows, construction will be a much more attractive industry to those who are younger and are seeing the 64% turnover rate. I mean, you're thinking about starting a family, you're thinking about career development. If you don't know where your next job is going to be in 2 months, does construction look very attractive? Maybe not.